Greetings and welcome to another River Radio Sports Central podcast. Alongside Matt Varney from 103.5 ESPN, I am Darren Kennard. And Matty, this is one of my two favorite work days of the year.
Absolutely.
It's Regional Final Friday. What a great time for high school basketball fans.
It's fantastic. And, you look up and down, there's 10, 11 matchups tonight that all involve area teams. I know one of them Breeze, but we count them here on River Radio Sports Central, of course. And, you look at it and they're just all juicy matchups,
Right.
Every Friday night, we go look at the schedules, and of course, I've got my games. A bunch of the guys in the building have their own games, but we look at it and we're like, okay, that's not a juicy one. Here's our collection of 2 or 3 really good-looking games. This Friday, every single one of them, and you're like, it's a buffet, and it's 10, 11 games of just, oh, wow, what's going to happen there?
Right.
Some of them you kind of get a good idea already, but a lot of them you're like, this is a coin toss. Anything could happen. I mean, even, the ones that on the outside looking in, if you don't have any contextual other than, maybe records, you look at Carterville, Massac County of like, oh, well, Carterville, of course. But Carterville lost at Massac County earlier this year, and Massac County is a tough out. Their losses had to be earned by all those teams that beat them. Right. So that's even a really good-looking one right there. This is a really good Friday night slate.
Yeah, and when you look down the list, there's a reason why you could go to each one of these games, and it's one of the reasons why. Yes, you get later in the postseason, obviously the games get bigger, and
of course,
all that type of thing. But Regional Final Friday, just across the board, you have so many teams that still have that hope alive.
It's one of those things where, obviously you're going to have really good games down the line, but as you get further down the line, that cream rising to the top happens, and you kind of can tell before you walk into the gym sometimes this is probably how it's going to go. Whereas with regionals, like you said, there's hope, and there's enough kind of wild card in it still that a lot of these ones you're going because you don't know what's going to happen.
And I always kind of term it like the NCAA tournament. That first round of the tournament, is chaos.
Yes.
And,
first and second.
The smaller teams or the lower seeds, they pull the upsets and then maybe they get a second upset and all that. But once you get to the Sweet 16, it's when the expected teams generally take care of their business.
And, I mean, no better way to kind of put an analogy together for the original March Madness with March Madness because it truly is. Okay, regionals is the first weekend of the first and second round. Sectionals is that okay, we're down to kind of the better one. There's a Cinderella in there, okay, all right. And then you get to that final weekend, which is supers and state finals, of course. But you get down to that final weekend of the Final Four and then Championship Monday. It's a perfect analogy right there. Again, original March Madness. They got the idea. The formula was already baked in, but, man, it works at all levels.
And we'll just kind of go through the matchups of the teams that are in our area.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's interesting to me as we get there is you have, of the 25 regionals that I'm tracking scores, 17 of them involve the home team, the host.
Right. It's crazy.
And then in 9 of those cases, the higher seed is on the road.
Yeah.
And, I mean, so not only do you have all the pressure of a regional championship and all that, in 9 cases, it's a road game.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because obviously the immediate 2A, the ones in the immediate area, the 2A matchups, that's the situation for all of them. Now, Ben's the higher seed, but it's a 2-3 matchup, so that's kind of a coin toss right there anyways. But Benton gets to host, Pinckneyville gets to host Nashville, and then Massac County, as I mentioned, hosting Carterville, and that's just 2A. There's a couple in 1A, and then Centralia is hosting. Just man, what a What a Friday night.
Well, let's get to the pairings here, and we'll go ahead and start in 1A. And one of those teams that's going to have to play a road game, and this is one that we've talked about for many, many weeks, is the potential that could happen with the Sparta Regional, and that's what we have tonight, the 2-seed Woodlawn versus the 3-seed Sparta. And my goodness, that is what we kind of thought, and that's what we kind of hoped for, and this is what we've got tonight.
Well, and this is a rematch from the Duster Thomas Hoops Classic Championship game, and that was a close one. Woodlawn led a good portion of that game. Sparta made a push late, but it was Woodlawn that came out on top. There will not be a third meeting between these two teams. Nope. This is the definitive one. Sparta gets the slight edge with being at their home court. They're such a good team, but Woodlawn, you can't count them out all season long. They've slid a little bit in everybody's rankings in their mind one way or another. I mean, they were up there as at one point early in the season, everyone was saying this might be a top 2 team in the area, and they may not be too for some people. But they've slid down a little bit, but you can't discount the Cardinals by any means. But Sparta, again, they get that home court advantage, and I mean, I've been saying it all year. I've been seeing them coming. I've been seeing the season coming. This is not a surprise by any means. This is one that if I did not have a game tonight, and I hate making the trek 4 times in a week, but I'd probably be saying, honey, I'm going to Sparta.
So that's one of the, as you said, tasty matchups that we have tonight. Also in 1A at Cobden, the top seed is Goreville meeting the 5th seed Cairo, who upset Cobden by seed 4-5 game. Cairo the 5 seed. That is the only one of the games that is a 6 o'clock start. So Goreville and Cairo 6 o'clock in Cobden, and so of course Goreville the heavy favorite, but again, Cairo's a wild card.
They are,
and it's one of those types of things that and not just any given night, but Cairo has put together some good wins.
They have.
If they get rolling, this is a dangerous, almost like a trap situation for Goreville, because you've thought all along about the Trico sectional and Woodlawn or Sparta and Waltonville.
Cairo's got them right where they want them.
And Goreville and everybody's had them penciled in, and Cairo's like, what? Not so fast, my friend.
Yeah, well, and
Lee Corso.
Right, exactly. And Cobden's the one that nearly was there, and then, like you said, they got upset by Cairo, and so there was almost one more that was going to be hosting and putting the top 10 seed on the road. But no, you're completely right. Cairo's, like I said, got them right where they want them. You're hearing it first. Cairo's the next Sparta. I've been saying that for the past 2 years, and I've been looking out for them, and they're on the come up. They are 15 or 16 win program, and yes, it's of course Goreville, but they play helter-skelter. They want to cause chaos. Goreville, it can deal with that, obviously. They're a team that can deal with a lot of different situations, but I don't know if any team can truly prepare for the chaos that Cairo likes to play with. They're young. They are they're on the come up, and it would be kind of the cherry on top of everything if they got an upset over Goreville and got a regional title. They'd be playing with house money at that point. They know their time's coming. And so, again, be on the lookout in the next couple of years for Cairo. They got a lot of young kids coming up. But Goreville, obviously, the heavy favorite, as we're going to say. There's not too much you can say about Goreville that we haven't already. But it is interesting. If Cairo can keep it close, don't be surprised if you see an upset. If Goreville takes control, as they have all week, then it's going to be a Goreville game.
Well, and I think this is one of those games in particular. Goreville is set school records for made threes in a season. But, 3-point shooting both ways. It can be a double-edged sword. It can shoot you out of a game. It can shoot you into the game. And the same thing for Cairo. If they're hot, and
they've gotten hot a few times.
The 3-point shot is just one of those great equalizers in basketball, especially at the high school level.
Well, and they just had a new all-time assist leader crowned.
Lawson Lamb,
exactly, and he's gonna again see some of the biggest pressure that he's seen all season long. Cairo's gonna say, we don't care, we're going for the ball every time. He might have the most turnovers that he's had all season long here tonight, and if that's the case, he's gonna learn from it. If not, man, it's going to show just how good he as a player is, and the Black Cats, of course, as well. And, I just said that, if Goreville plays the way that they do, I started thinking about it. I was like, no, because the way that Caro plays, they're never truly out of it until you've got that running clock going.
And the flip side of that is even if they get a big lead, you're never really out of it.
Right,
and the other way, just because of the way they play.
Which it's like you said, it's a double-edged sword. It works both ways. But if it works in their favor,
right,
they're going to be working with something right there, and they're going to have to then kind of grow up a little bit, because that's also where that double-edged sword comes in. Is that, okay, we've used this to get to our way to get our way to this position. Now we have to play like we've been here, and that might be my one concern for Caro. They're going to have to learn how to deal with that lead against a team like Goreville,
and with Goreville's 3 main ball handlers being experienced guys. They can break that pressure. Now you're going, a hockey term, odd man rush, 2-on-1, 3-on-2, and fast break, and certainly we know that Goreville can make you pay with that situation. At Gallatin County, it's an all GEC final. Hardin County and NCOE will be playing for the 5th time this year. Hardin County, the 2 seed, NCOE, the 3. They're playing at Gallatin County, so this was pretty much a GEC tournament over there. And again, Hardin County came away with the championship at the GEC tournament. They split. They split during their regular season meetings, and so, man, you talk about no surprises tonight. You're just going to have to out-tough the other guy.
Yeah, and 5 times in a season. I know Mount Vernon and Centralia did that a couple of times back in the early 2000s. Yeah. I know that was what happened, but when you get down to your 5th one, I have to imagine that there's no bad blood, I imagine, and you're probably just sitting across being like, let's just get this over with, because I know what you're going to do. You know what I'm going to do.
It just comes down to execution.
It comes down to execution. It just comes down to ball. Who's going to ball out tonight. That's one right there that is going to be under the radar, I think, for some people, but could end up being a really good game.
And the last regional final that goes into the Trico sectional is the Alvarado 1A regional. That's top-seeded Waltonville and the 4-seed New Athens. These two met early in the season, which seems like an eternity ago in the Christopher Turkey tournament. It was all Waltonville. The Spartans been dealing with some injury issues. They appear to be back full strength, have everybody going. And, New Athens is a team that's, again, kind of a wild card because they play in the Cahokia Kaskaskia. We don't see a ton of them other than the early season tournaments. They really... this is one of those offense versus defense type situations where Waltonville's defense has just been outstanding, and so now New Athens is going to have to come in and try to score like they are accustomed to, or at least at some sort of quality pace to be able to try to pull the upset.
And the only thing that I can really say about that matchup is that, as you mentioned, that they play the Christopher Turkey tournament eons ago at this point.
Right.
I was talking with Taylor Seifert, the head coach at John A. Logan softball earlier today, actually, and they played number 1 Northwest Florida State a few weeks ago, and it was a 3-0 game. It was a pretty close game. And afterwards, we got done talking a little bit, and I said, the only thing that really you can say about that right there is that, okay, now we know where our defects are, and we hope that we see you somewhere down the line in the postseason. That's what New Athens had to take from that Turkey tournament loss of, okay, we know where the defects are. We know what you were able to attack. Now we got to use this entire season to get better. And obviously you're not focusing just on Waltonville, but if you want to make a deep run, you're going to see Waltonville. So, and it wouldn't be just Waltonville. It'd be Woodlawn, Sparta. They're looking at being like, we're going to see a good team like Waltonville down the line. We need to use this entire season to prepare for the exact moment when we see either Waltonville again or someone else like them, and we have to make sure that gap has been closed. And so we're going to find out tonight just how much that gap has closed, if they have maybe surpassed them, what the situation is. That's what we're going to find out, of just how much better a team can get from bookend to bookend.
Well, and we talked earlier about the trap game for Goreville. This is very much so in play for Waltonville, just in the fact that everybody people like us, have penciled them into the Trico sectional for a long time. And then when we talk about who's got the toughest paths, to the sectional, to state, whatever, and Waltonville's not one that comes up. And so if you're New Athens, you can play the disrespect card. And again, if Waltonville, and I don't think this will happen. I've said this about this team all year. This has been a tough-minded team.
It has.
But in that same capacity, it's not a Nashville or a 3A, a 2A school in front of them. It's a team that they whacked early in the year. And so the human nature part of it is, okay, we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, we're just two guys talking.
Yeah. We've been there before.
Once you get out on the floor, will this team, and I suspect they will, having seen them all year, they will go out and handle their business early.
I'd imagine, yeah.
But this is one of those games where if New Athens hangs around, then the pressure will build on that team that's a favorite, especially when you're a major favorite.
Right.
Back to the NCAA tournament, the 116 or the 215. I don't think you're going to get that point where the crowd gets involved rooting for the underdog because they split the ticket, so that's not a concern. But again, I just think that it's one of those things that Waltonville, clearly the favorite. I think that they've proven that through the regular season they've been the best 1A team in the area. Now they just have to go ahead and continue to prove it.
Well, and you say that you don't think the crowd will really make that much of a swing. I say that they just might, because I was going to say the other side of this also is and obviously both teams have played in that gym at this point, but it's a small gym. And obviously they're playing in 1A. They play in small gyms all the time, but Alvarado is a small gym.
Right.
And so that environment right there can feel weird a little bit if you're not used to playing in those gyms. And I mean, Waltonville, they're going to Pinckneyville every other weekend, it feels like. They're going to bigger gyms.
Right.
Not that they're not used to this size of a gym, but again, it's a situation where it's a very small gym, which can make you kind of feel a little bit different than if you're in a normal-sized gym. And then, they split the ticket. But if New Athens fans show up like they should be since they split the ticket, and New Athens goes on a 6 or 8-0 run, now New Athens fans are getting into it, and now you're dealing with a raucous crowd that's in front of you of about 300 fans. And, it's only 300, but in that gym, 300 feels like 3,000.
Well, and that's a great point, and I think that either way, the swings of emotion, when things are going to be great, it's going to be deafening for your side, and then when things start to, things maybe go south a little bit, and then, all of a sudden that small gym feels even tighter.
Yeah.
So, again, very interesting, and this is why I said we can come up with storylines for each one that really makes these regional finals attractive. Also in 1A, you've got Carlisle and Bunker Hill at Bunker Hill. And then you've got the group of our teams that get sent to the east. At North Clay, you've got number 1 Lawrenceville, again playing a host team, the fourth-seeded North Clay City Cardinals. And then at Altamont, the one that we've kind of had circled for a long time, the 2-seed Weber versus the 3-seed Altamont. And so the Trojans, between Woodlawn, Sparta, Weber, those three from top to bottom have the toughest trip if you're going to make it to state, and it really starts tonight for Weber having to deal with Altamont at home.
Well, it's another team that is the higher seed having to go on the road in a regional championship game, as we've already mentioned. Nesto Hoops, who's a great asset to Illinois basketball, he put out his predictions a week ago, and he said he thought Altamont would come out of this one right here. Selfishly, I think all of us in the media want to see Nathaniel Marlowe go as deep as he can, which would mean he to try to challenge Chico for that record. To do that, I mean, I guess it is possible that he would get 127 points. It's not likely by any means, but so for that to happen, he's got to get out of the regionals, obviously.
Right.
He probably needs to get at minimum to a sectional final to even challenge for it. But nonetheless, we're talking about things that could happen.
Right.
Again, if we want to see that storyline play out to its fullest potential, Weber's got to get past a team that's on their home floor that is probably riding the biggest high that they could possibly be riding into tonight.
In the other regionals that feed into the Macon Meridian sectional at Tuscola, the number 1 seeded host Tuscola versus Stu Strauss Windsor, who's the 4 seed. And at KZ Westfield, the host KZ Westfield squad is the 2 seed versus Cumberland, a 3 seed out of the National Trail. All right, on to 2A, and we'll go to the east side first. At Robinson, it's number 1 T-Town and number 5 Newton. At Vandalia, we had one of the few upsets we saw in the first round. The host Vandals beat Effingham St. Anthony, who was the 2 seed. So the 7 Vandalia gets Fairfield, the 3 seed. So Fairfield gets the advantage in being the better seed.
Yep.
But again, you're playing somebody on their home floor in the title game.
That's right, without a doubt. And, when we talk about those type of upsets right there, where Effingham St. Anthony gets ousted, and obviously Vandalia earned that and everything. But when you talk about that, I go back to 2019 football season, Murfreesboro, their path to the state finals. I know we're talking basketball, but I go back to that when we're talking about paths to the state championship, because at the time I'm enjoying it. I'm just along for the ride. I'm not looking at the bigger picture. Steve Webb, very seasoned man at that time, I'm not looking at it. I'm just like, man, what a great run we're on. But then you go back and you zoom out. You can do it right now if you want. You can go over and look at that path and just look at the bombs that went off on the bracket around them, and you're like, man, they did have a really kind of catered path for them. Even though for the semifinals they had to go to Effingham, and it was not an easy game there. But you just, when it comes to teams making it to the state finals, if it's not a favorite making there, like an Effingham St. Anthony would be a favorite to make it to at least a super, you have to look at, okay, what stick of dynamite went off that blew up one team's plans, that now a path is opened for a team like a Fairfield or a Vandalia, that now all of a sudden, hey, we're talking about not only a regional championship game potentially, and it's not against Effingham St. Anthony, it's up in the air potentially. Right. We're talking about also, how deep do we think we could go? It's a situation where, great job Vandalia, but now Fairfield's licking their lips saying, well, let's see what we can do tonight, and what
kind of chaos can we continue to stir up?
Exactly. Maybe we're not going back to the barn just yet. Maybe we got a couple more rides left in us. Maybe we could be talking about not only tonight, maybe we could be talking about playing a week from tonight as well. That's what happens when a stick of dynamite goes off in the bracket, and it's great for those teams. Obviously, it hurts for the team that lost, but for the teams around them, they're all of a sudden looking around with a sense of hope of, man, maybe we could do something.
Well, and Effingham St. Anthony was not quite as, was down a little bit this year, but they were still a regional top seed. You think back a few years ago when Christ Our Rock Lutheran made it to the Super, Effingham St. Anthony got beat in the regional final, that opened up the path. What you're talking about is, hey, not only do we handle our business, but some things happen that were advantageous to us, and now we get to keep moving on.
And that was Meridian, Christ Our Rock Lutheran, all the way up at Eastern Illinois.
Driving to Charleston for that. So, also in 2A, as we get into the games that feed into the Nashville sectional at Massac County, you mentioned it, top-seeded Carterville and Massac County. On the surface, record-wise, this appears to be a bit of a mismatch, but, you get the factor in, this is at Massac County, and the fact that the Patriots have beaten Carterville on that floor.
They have.
It's again, you get into a one-game championship situation, and, all bets are off, so to speak.
Yeah, well,
you shouldn't be betting on high school stuff. Anyway.
You shouldn't be, but I mean, if you do, don't tell us, obviously. But I mean, you got two coaching greats on the sidelines, and Shane Hawkins, of course, and then the legendary Joe Hossman. This is going to be a battle of the minds, without a doubt. And Joe Hossman cobbled together a win over Murfreesboro at the regional semifinal at Anna Jonesboro last year when he knew he probably shouldn't have, but he was like, hey, we're going to do it. And so you're sitting in a situation right now, if you're the Patriots, where you're like, can we do that again? We're on our home floor. It'll be interesting tonight, without a doubt. I would kind of look towards the statistic of who's going to be making more of their shots, who's going to be statistically making more shots tonight. Jude Harmon or Colton Hawkins. I think it might come down to that matchup right there.
Well, and the thing is that was very interesting. I was down there Wednesday night, and Carterville had a little bit of kind of slugged through the dog days that we talked about around the midwinter tournament time, and it looks like they figured it out. I mean, it really
they do.
it was fun to watch because it's a good brand of basketball. Everybody moves. The ball moves, everybody shares it, and you got 5 dudes on the floor that, one, you can tell understand the game, but 2, all have the ability to do something when they get the ball, and so that makes them very difficult.
They're very intelligent, and it helps that they have a very intelligent, in terms of basketball IQ, head coach.
Sure, and again, as many games as that we see, when you watch games and you can tell a team or certain, maybe doesn't have that game understanding. It's glaring.
It is.
And when you see teams that get it really, again, stands out in the other direction. And Massac County, the limitations really that they had most of the year is they had struggled defensively.
They had. Yeah.
But they locked down against Anna Jonesboro, and Caleb Gore came in off of a 55-point game, and Jude Harmon said, I want the defensive assignment, and you gotta like that out of your leader. And I think Jude picked him up as soon as he walked out off the bus, and Caleb had no room all night long, and it was a tough night shooting for him, even though he surpassed 1,000 points on the night. But defensively, Massac was able to do that. Now, can they carry that effort over?
Yeah.
And that's the big question.
That's a huge question. But man, if you want to talk about upsets, that would be potentially the biggest upset of the night. But again, they already did it once, so I don't know if you could really call it an upset.
Right, and that's the thing. When we talked about when these pairings came out, it's like, yes, Nashville and Carterville are, the number 1 seeds, and rightfully so, but there were pitfalls in each of the regionals, and that pitfall for Carterville was, hey, you've got a team that beat you on that floor, and so now Carterville whacked them in Carterville.
That's right. Yeah.
But again,
everybody seemed to get whacked in Carterville this year.
the limited number of home games they had, and then speaking of Nashville, we're going to talk about them now. Is they go to Pinckneyville where they're the top seed, and the 4-5 matchup there was Westland, who had handed Nashville a loss early in the season, or Pinckneyville, who's the 5 seed. Pinckneyville takes care of business in a big way over Westland in the semifinals. So now it's Nashville, Pinckneyville at Pinckneyville for a regional championship. And again, another one of those tasty matchups.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, you look at what happened in Nashville the other night against DuQuoin and just how they got scared. We were nearly looking at DuQuoin, Pinckneyville, and you want to talk about rivalries. This is a rivalry. You want to talk about rivalries.
Right.
Oh, boy. But Nashville survives that. But you sit there and wonder, okay, obviously I was not there, so I don't know the whole story of what was going on. But you know who does? Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer was sitting in those stands, and obviously he had to step into the locker room at some point and talk to his kids, but he had to step in there at some point, or sit down rather, and just write down in his notepad, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened. What can we replicate? And, if you're Pinckneyville, I don't know why you wouldn't sit there and say, if we can replicate X, Y, and Z that DuQuoin did, then we've got this in the bag. Because, man, not a lot of teams have a Ty Lauer. And so if you can do what DuQuoin did the other night, and you have Ty Lauer, it might be a long night for the Nashville Hornets.
Well, and again, with those two, I mean, they've had 2 pretty tight games.
Yep.
They just played in Pinckneyville, 2 weeks ago or
and
last
Pinckneyville
week.
had them on the ropes.
Pinckneyville was up, I think, 5 or 6 going into the fourth quarter, and then Nashville rallies for the win late.
Yeah.
And so, and then the flip side of that is you mentioned the games where you see teams struggle maybe that and avoid an upset in an early round.
Yeah.
They tend to come back the next time
Generally.
a little bit more motivated, little bit sharper, and okay, that scared the willies out of us, and so now we're here and we're locked in, and so again, just tremendous storylines for these games.
It's amazing. You couldn't, if we were sitting in a screenwriter's room. And we still haven't gotten through everything, but if we were sitting in the screenwriter's room and we were doing kind of like on NBC Friday Night Lights, which I love that show. But if we were doing it for basketball, so Dawson's Creek or something like that, I guess, if you're sitting in a writer's room, you would have your editor come up and say, there's too much. There is too much. You guys need to calm down. You need to stop writing. This is real life. This is real life. So if you're ever in Hollywood and you're writing a TV script for any sports show and your editor comes up and says, it's too much, you need to cut X, Y, and Z, say, that's what happens in real life, okay?
Right.
I get you want us to focus on 1 or 2 storylines, but there would be 15, and you have to live with that.
And another storyline in the game you're going to have tonight.
Yes.
The Benton 2A Regional, the host Rangers are the 2 seed. The 3 seed is Murfreesboro. These two are no strangers, even though now they're on opposite sides of the conference. They've met. They've met in the regular season in the past. They've met in the postseason in the past. Yes. These two are very familiar with each other.
Oh, absolutely. Daryl Murphy and Ron Weinmiller know each other well. There was a point, actually, Ben's not at the Pinckneyville Holiday Tournament anymore, but Ron Weinmiller was actually there on his day off during the Holiday Tournament's time this past year, and I went up to him, and Murfreesboro was a little late getting there, and I went up to Ron, and I was like, you want to do my pregame interview with Daryl? And he was like, oh, boy, do I. Man, these two, they respect each other, obviously, but it's a good rivalry game. And it was one of those ones that when they were in the Ohio division, I always just kind of looked down and was like, oh, boy, here we go. Because you knew what it was going to be. Right. It's always going to be a good game, but it's going to go down to the wire. That's what happened in December. It was a 7-point loss. The one big thing was, though, and when I say big, I mean big, Kemion Hale was out. He was not with the Red Devils at that moment in time. He was not playing, I should say, at that time in the middle of a 5-game absence. And so that's the big question coming into tonight is how will that affect things? The other night, Benton, they were playing Vienna, and Nolan Schaefer, I think, had 4 threes. He's a bit of a stretch forward. When Murfreesboro saw them in December, he took a couple threes. He did not make 4 threes, though. So if he keeps that going, that'll be a problem, obviously. The other thing was that in December, Schaefer, since there was no Kemion Hale to defend, he said, well, I'm going to go out and guard your 3-point threat, which he can obviously do because he shoots threes. He knows how to guard the perimeter. And so just with Kemion Hale getting kind of just plopped down into the middle in this next matchup, I'm interested to see how that changes things. Drake Porter is coming along. He looks good as a sophomore at this point. He's come a long way. But if you remove Nolan Schaefer or if you remove Drake Porter, I have to wonder how the Red Devils might look in this thing. Now, obviously, if the Red Devils come out flat, it's gonna be a long night for them. But if you have just everything that happened in December happens again tonight, but you have Kemion Hale, I have to wonder, does the result change?
And again, this is going to be one of those where if you're Murfreesboro, you've got to withstand when the home team has a run.
Yes.
Because this is a road game for them. And the flip side for Benton is defensively, they've been great all year.
Yeah.
And Murfreesboro is good defense. This feels like a first to 40.
It could be
type game.
It more than likely will be. The other night, I think it was 54-38, the final for Benton Vienna. It was not that far apart. Vienna kept on fouling in the fourth quarter when it kind of had already gotten out of hand, so that score got run up a little bit because they were shooting free throws. It almost certainly will be first to 40. I would not doubt. Now, you might see them in the 50s, but I wouldn't doubt by one bit that it's first to 40, first to 45, something like that tonight. It's going to be close. It's going to be very defensive, and it'll be interesting. And to your point about this being a road game for Murfreesboro, if they win this one, they very well could be going on the road again because it's possible they could see Nashville in the first sectional game.
Yeah, at Nashville.
Yeah.
So in the other regional that feeds into Nashville, at Columbia, you talk about a rivalry game for a regional title. Nashville, Pinckneyville. How about Breeze Central, Breeze Mater Dei? These two colliding after Mater Dei pulled the upset, beating the host Columbia squad in overtime in the semifinals. So it's Central and Mater Dei for the Columbia Championship. Other 2A regionals, and these feed into the Pleasant Plains sectional, which is on the opposite side of the Nashville sectional, feeding into the SIU Super. You've got at Roxana and Alton Marquette. That's again, that's outside of our area, but Alton Marquette's been a team that kind of quietly had a great year. You saw Roxana at Pinckneyville,
Yeah,
so
they're
I
very
think
good.
That's a quality matchup. At Carlinville, you've got Staunton, the number 1 seed, versus a host 4 in Carlinville. Staunton's a team that has kind of been at the top of the mix on that other side the entire time. And then at North Mac, you have Quincy Notre Dame, who many feel will be the team from that side to make it down to Carbondale. And they get, again, another home team. They get the 4th seed North Mac, and then the 4th regional is Williamsville, and it's Williamsville and Rochester in that one. And so, again, those are teams that we don't see much of. But again, include them because this area is going to see them at some point, and at some point,
one of them
is the SIU Super.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, those are all quality programs right there. I mean, you mentioned some that we talk about football a lot. Well, usually, if you have a good football team, the basketball is usually gonna follow. So you just heard Rochester. Yeah, well, they've got athletes. Of course, they're going to be in the regional title game.
Right. On to 3A now, and at Mascoutah, East St. Louis is the top seed, and they rolled past Waterloo in the semis to get to the title game. And waiting will be the 4th-seeded Marion Wildcats, who dispatched the host Indians in impressive fashion Wednesday night. Mackay House, a career-high 40 on the night, and the only downside to that is that East St. Louis was there watching, and not that they wouldn't have scouted Marion anyway going in, but he will get their full attention tonight.
And I'm sure they would have done that already, but the thing is, now that they've seen it, they're going to double down. When you're talking about being on the court, talking with another coach today about just, you can coach these kids up so much, you can say this, but when they're on the court, that mind, you sometimes it goes blank, sometimes it goes into overdrive. Either way, these kids, they react on the court differently than when you're giving instructions. So you might see them defend Mackay House a little bit harder because they just saw 40 from him.
Right.
They might say, we got to shut him down, which might lead to some inadvertent double or triple teams. I'm sure that there's going to be times where they plan to double team him, but there might be some times where they plan to double team and a third guy somehow ends up there. That'll leave some openings. It's not going to be an easy game by any means for Marion, but if you want to pull off that upset, you got to recognize where the gaps are, where the leaks are. You got to find ways to take advantage of, okay, Mackay just put on this huge performance for us. That's a weapon for you. You have to go ahead and say, okay, Mackay, you did a great job in the semifinals. You set us up. You set the table. We appreciate that. Are you okay being our decoy tonight? Because you really don't have a choice.
Well, yeah, and he's going to have to find a way to get some buckets, but you're right. He's going to get a ton of attention. And again, Marion, they know.
Of course.
East St. Louis is one of the top-rated teams in the state. They were going to be a good team anyway. They had some move-ins in the offseason that, helped both their football and basketball program. And, when it's always nice when you have a couple 6'7", 6'8" dudes.
That helps.
Dad played major college basketball, had a cup of coffee in the NBA. Those kind of additions are never turned away.
No.
And so the task is monumental in front of you, but you can just let it rip.
Yeah, why not?
There is zero pressure on Marion. Nobody outside of that locker room has any expectations for Marion tonight. And so they can just go and let her fly. And it's not as if, the Marion coaching staff can't point back to several years ago. It's like, hey, we played East St. Louis in the sectionals before, and again, it seems like it's a tough mountain, but like everybody else, if you can keep it close and down the stretch, then maybe you can pull off that upset.
Exactly. As we talked about with multiple 1A teams coming up tonight, Marion's playing with house money right now. You might as well go ahead and just throw the whole kitchen sink at them. And if you get a regional title, you make it to the sectionals, and now you've shown your hand to everybody.
Right.
That's fine, because you know what? You just took down Eastside, and that's great.
Right.
And you've proven that you can take them down. So who cares that everybody knows what your hand looks like? Because you took down East St. Louis, so you can take down anybody. So again, Mackay House is going to have to play the role of decoy if you want to get the win here tonight, which I think he could do magnificently. You've got a lot of good young players on that roster. Again, they've got a couple seniors in Roper and Adkins that are quality players. But when we're talking about Marion, we're talking about Blue, we're talking about House, they've got some young talent that could learn a lot tonight and be ready to go next year. But hey, if you get a win, if you get a regional title with this group, man, you just go ahead and play in the parade right now.
Also in 3A at Centralia, the host Orphans are the 2 seed, and they get Mount Vernon, the old friends, the 3 seed in the championship game tonight. And again, this is you don't need to hear from us about Centralia and Mount Vernon. This will be the 4th meeting this year, and Centralia has taken care of the business. The Orphans' only loss came to Chicago Marist in the championship game of the holiday tournament. They've taken care of their business, whether it's been home or on the road, and so now they've got one final home game and for this season, and it is. I guess it seems appropriate that it's Mount Vernon.
Of course, and it's of course in the year that they're leaving the South 7 and everything. Of course, there'd be no better way. But my one question is, they say it's really tough to win the 3rd game. How tough is it to win the 4th game?
To win the 4th.
That's what I really want to know. And so. Centralia has been the unanimous number 1 team throughout the area. There was a few weeks there in the SI basketball poll where they didn't get the unanimous nod, but they were always number 1. Right. And I think Mount Vernon was the one that was getting a couple of their votes there in a couple of those weeks in the middle of the season. But Centralia has been, for a majority of the season, unanimous number 1, except for 2 or 3 weeks. You want to talk about add an insult to injury. Again, 4th meeting between these 2 teams, and then you have the fact that they're leaving the South 7 Centralia. If you want to talk about insult to injury, Mount Vernon, this is your chance. If you want to go ahead and really stick it to your rival, this is your opportunity.
Right. I mean, all the pieces are in place. Of course, all those pieces in place make it a really tough.
Yes, of course.
A tough task. But, on their home floor, regional championship, all the marbles, all those types of things. So it certainly is a very, again, another tasty matchup. And the other regionals that are feeding into the Waterloo sectional at Triad, the host Knights are the top seed. They get Chatham-Glenwood, who's the 5. Mm-hmm. And at Jerseyville, it'll be Jacksonville, the 2 seed, against Civic Memorial, who's a 6, and pulled off a semifinal upset in that one.
Civic Memorial always just seems to find themselves in these spots. It doesn't matter what seed they're in. They always just seem to find themselves in a regional title game. They're just a quality program that knows what it takes to get there. They don't always get over the hump, but they do know how to get over the hump. It's one of those programs that it doesn't matter what type of year they've had. You sit there and say, I'm not discounting them one bit. They've got a shot to win this.
So on the girls' side, last night was sectional final night, and at Chester in the 2A sectional, you had Nashville, the defending state champs, taking on Bree Central, a team that they had already beaten twice this year, including impressively in the midwinter. And it's one of those situations where you had, depending on the poll, depending on the week, whatever, these have been the top 2 or 2 of the top 3 teams in the entire state. And what'll be funny is we won't hear any of the gnashing of teeth that we hear in other sports about, well, you can't have 1 playing 2 in the quarterfinals. That's not right. And but yet it's okay in girls basketball, and that's what we had. And Bree Central ended Nashville's hopes of back-to-back state championships. 58-48 was the final. First half, Nashville's up 1 at the break, and then Central comes out and hits 6 of 7 from three-point range in the second half. And they got a little bit of separation, and then I felt like Nashville kind of was pressing a little bit because they hadn't really been in that spot, down 6 or 8 in the third quarter, and then they would get it back to 4. And then Central would hit a big time 3, and that's just such a deflating thing. And again, Central is now has a path to a potential state championship. They go to Benton, where they will face T-Town, a team they have already beaten this year. But for Nashville, the season ends at 31-3, and I know there's great disappointment and the nagging feeling of what could have been had Emma Bierman not gotten hurt back early in the season, and after 6 games, Bierman, was lost to a knee injury, and so. But again, it's a testament to how good this program is that you take out an all-state caliber player, and you still get to the sectional final. You still end up with 31 wins, and the team that is top notch is got to take you out.
Yeah, well, and I when that had happened, the rest of the season, I've been kind of saying to people when I talked with them, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, because obviously they're fantastic. They're a great program. They know what they're doing. They won 31 games. Gosh darn it. But I had been telling people, I don't know without Bierman how far they'll make it. Not so much of like I thought they could make it to the state finals, but it was more so the fact of I don't know without her if they're gonna be able to get over that hump and get that back to back. That's really tough. It's, as everyone knows, it's really tough to go back to back for a lot of different reasons. But I was like, without her, I don't know if they can do it. And I mean, they fell sooner than I expected, honestly, and I think a lot of people would say the same. I thought that it would be sometime next week if it did happen. But I also was not discrediting them by any means, because I was like, they could, because obviously they won 31 wins. But at the same time, it was just like without her, that's your kind of put over the top type of thing. When you see teams that turn into dynasties, that's usually because they kind of have a little bit of luxury with them. And Emma Bierman, obviously, a big luxury to have. But, man, just without her, it is a what-if type of season. You hurt for the program and for her, obviously, but you got to move on, and it is what it is.
Well, and Bree Central, it's not like this was a massive upset in any capacity, because Bree Central, those two have been the standards for Southern Illinois girls basketball. They've met in the sectional finals each of the last 3 years. The 2 previous ones went Nashville's way. And again, having just a month ago, Nashville winning 68-40.
Yeah.
That's one of those dangerous things when you beat somebody big, just like we talked about with Waltonville and New Athens. And again, Nathan Reeder's a Hall of Famer for a reason, the Bree Central coach. And so, that didn't work. So let's come up with something different. They came up with a matchup zone, and it kind of gave Nashville some fits. And again, this is not like some massive upset. I mean, Bree Central is really stinking good.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And tip of the cap to them. Obviously, they deserve it. But if you're a Nashville fan, this one obviously hurts, because you
no question,
especially because you came into the season thinking, we're going to go back to back, and then Emma goes down, and you're like, oh no. But then you watch the rest of the season, and you're like,
they continue to win.
We're fine. Like, obviously, you hate that Emma's not there, but we're fine. We could still do it. And so for it to happen, especially because even though obviously the communities of Nashville and Breeze don't hate each other the way that some of the communities around do, it's one of those where when it comes down to postseason time, that rivalry, it's a postseason rivalry more than anything, and you sit there and say, not them.
Well, I mean, the fact is that if you're either one of those teams, that to get where you want to be,
you got to go through
you're going to have to go through the other one.
Yeah.
And that is always going to be the case. T-Town beat Paris 40-30 in the Olney sectional, so it's Bree Central and T-Town Monday at 6 in Benton. The only team that we have left outside of Bree Central, a little closer from the Black Diamond, Edwards County, the Black Diamond East champs, won the Wayne City 1A sectional, beating Brownstown St. Elmo 50-44. Up next for Edwards County, they get to make the trek to Arcola.
Oh, boy.
Where they will face Mount Pulaski, who beat Cumberland 37-36 to win the Argenta 1A sectional. And Oakville was in the final at Bunker Hill and lost a heartbreaker to West Central 61-58 in double overtime. And that's one of those gut wrenchers where it's not only a season ender, but to know that you were that close, and to fall in double overtime.
I mean, it not the same thing, but I can relate that to Murfreesboro Middle just a few weeks ago, last week I think actually, in that they poured their heart and soul into a win over the Belleville school they were playing up at Rend Lake in the Class L state title game, and they thought they had it, and then they got hit with the technical free throws, end up sending it to overtime. You end up running out of gas. That's part of it. And for a team that's in the state title game, you wouldn't think that, but when it's such an emotional side of it too. You've poured everything into the bucket, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, we're going to play another period, and it's, oh gosh, right. How do I not necessarily motivate myself, but how do I give when I've given everything already? Right. It's tough. And so not only do they play an overtime game, but a double overtime. Both of those teams, were at their wits' end right there. We're like, I poured everything in. What more can I possibly give?
Yeah, going to the reserve one more time. Yeah. At the Waterloo 3A sectional, these teams eliminated Carbondale and Marion earlier in the week. Chatham-Glenwood beat Quincy Notre Dame in the championship game 51-36. So Glenwood gets to go home for the super sectional.
Oh, boy.
We talked about home regionals. How about hosting a super sectional? They get a home game in the super. They get Decatur MacArthur, who beat Lincoln 38-32. And so that is the way that played out in 3A.
Yeah, and MacArthur's always been, doesn't matter if you're talking boys or girls, they're a basketball school.
Right.
But Chatham-Glenwood is kind of one of those teams that it comes to athletics. It's their
sport.
Yeah, exactly. Pick a sport. They're kind of considered a top 16 team in just about every sport in IHSA. So that'll be a really good matchup. Decatur MacArthur's obviously sitting there saying, "We want a neutral court," but that's how the chips play.
That. And with Glenwood, I saw a tweet that said softball practice is
of course
postponed to. But again, they won state or got to state in softball last year. Yeah. So again, just you see the wealth of the program. The other thing we've got going this week is girls state wrestling is in Bloomington. We've got a few area wrestlers that have a shot, and we will of course keep you updated on that. And if they make it into the championship matches, that will mean a trek north for yours truly and some windshield time to again kind of scout my way to Arcola for Monday night for the super sectional for Edwards County.
I don't know if you're going to find any shortcuts, but if you do, let me know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you know that path probably better than most. Yeah. And there's just
I hate to say
it's there's not a quick way.
It's 57. That's about it.
Yeah. So, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the River Radio Sports Central podcast. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kennard. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again next week. Same time, same place.